I started Small Town Girl from Bakersfield, which is like 2 hours north of LA. Love LA. I've been here. I got my first job in real estate about a year out of college, and I started as an assistant at Marks and Millichap. I chose Northeast LA. 20 years ago, those areas were not what they are now, and I've rode the wave. I'm still here.
You got on the right wave.
That was who I was cold calling at that time, and I have a lot of experience with that.
Yeah, that's awesome because lending was so locked up then. It was all cash deals.
Yeah. Right now, for multifamily owners, I really think that you really have to run your properties like a business. You really have to actively manage. You have to know the rent control rules. You have to become somebody who markets your building well. The mentality then and what worked then is so different than what works now. You want people who are going to naturally turn over so that you can keep your rents up.
Especially true in RSO or rent-controlled cities.
Yeah. People don't really remember the details about you, but they remember how you make them feel.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another Property Pro Tips episode. I'm your host, Trevor Henson, and today we are blessed to have one Mrs. Dana Coronado from Compass Investment Real Estate. How are you, Dana, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I know you are very experienced in doing such things, so I'm glad to have you and get your piece of your time.
Sure.
Tell our audience, what's the 3 minutes on Dana? How'd you get here? Why are you here? What are you doing here? And what space are you in?
Sure. I'm honestly like a small town girl from Bakersfield, which is like 2 hours north of LA. I went to UCLA for undergrad, and I never moved back. I love LA. I've been here. I got my first job in real estate about a year out of college, and I started as an assistant at Marks and Millichap.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I know, right? Fun place to start and get my feet wet. I worked for a broker there who sold apartment buildings in South LA. And she, was a very good broker. It was a lot of fun. It was a fun time in the market. This was like, 2006, 2005. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is great. I want to do this. And I got my license, and I've worked at, other commercial offices, and currently at Compass, I have a team with my husband. He does residential real estate. I do multifamily and commercial. We have, probably more than 6 people on our team right now, including our boys. My stepsons, they are 24, recently out of college. They work with us. They're learning the ropes.
Nice.
We have a couple other agents that work with us, operations manager. It's fun times.
That is a solid team.
Yeah.
For 20 years in the business, that's 25 all the way, actually. That's a
20.
Good, almost. But so did I understand that correctly? You've been in multifamily real estate your entire career?
Time, yeah.
Wow.
I started in multifamily.
Impressive.
So I saw, at M&M how, everybody gets a farm, everybody gets a product type. And I also saw how certain agents were very successful in, certain areas, demographics, and being a very, very young Latina, I realized that I had to choose a farm that I felt like owners would be receptive to me. And so I chose Northeast LA, Highland Park, Silver Lake, Echo Park, Eagle Rock. And, 20 years ago, those areas were not what they are now. And I rode the wave. I'm still here.
You got on the right wave.
And yeah, so, most of my experience when I started was like very mom and pop type owners. Obviously I made it through the market crash. I had to expand and definitely pivot during that time. I was a very young agent, and I did a lot of REOs. I, sold stuff in South LA, wherever there were short sales. I was marketing myself to hard money lenders,
wow.
Owners who had done seller carries. That was who I was cold calling at that time. And so I have a lot of experience with that. And it's, I do a lot of value add deals.
Yeah, that's awesome pivot. And because lending was so locked up then, it was all cash deals.
Nobody was,
Yeah, or hard money, right? I remember seeing 7% cash on cash. I was like, that's crazy. Or hearing about it then.
I was selling such cheap deals back then that people were second guessing whether they should buy or not because it felt like such a risk. And now it's like the hugest win.
Right, because the whole housing market had crashed. And like, you want me to invest in real estate?
Yeah.
But some of the really savvy investors I knew were buying up as much as they could for cash and then just refining. Because you could refi,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
You could not get
I,
those loans unless you had cash. Everyone
yeah.
was like, nope, nope. But that's awesome. That's a great pivot. I've not heard of a pivot into marketing to owners who have been known to carry paper back. That's a great
Well,
strategy.
I was just pulling the NOD list,
Yeah.
and that's who I was cold calling, I was calling the owners and the lenders.
Persistence and great tenacity.
I was very young. I had a lot of time on my hands and I needed money.
Right?
So,
Isn't that how we are when young? Yeah, we have no money and all the time in the world.
yeah. But it was fun. And like one of those deals that I got was I have the listing now. I'm selling it for the third time.
Wow.
And I got the listing from East West Bank as an REO. It was an 8 unit in Lincoln Heights. And I'm selling it again for the third time. And I'm really trying to double end it for 3 times for the ultimate broker win.
Congratulations. I mean, that shows that you are awesome because no
Thank
one's
you.
going to come back and relist their building with you if they had a bad buying experience, right?
Yeah, I know.
Congratulations. So diving right into our questions because
Sure.
your story is also very interesting and your experience is amazing. Very seldom have I had anyone on our shows that been first job out of college was Marcus and Millichap, and here you still are selling multifamily. You can't buy that type of experience. So everyone listening, she is the grand wizard of multifamily here in the Southland because there's not too many people who've stuck it out for that long from the beginning.
I don't know what that says about me. It might mean that I'm a little crazy, but
Hey,
it's been fun.
that's one of the rules. That's one of the rules to play by here. You have to be a little bit crazy to kind of get into this market because it's not a normal steady thing. There's so many moving pieces. We're dealing with humans and housing and things that are very important to people. Like I said, we're not selling shoes.
Yeah.
We are selling people's shelter, which is the base level of Maslow's pyramid, right? So that has an emotional impact. So,
And tenants now.
right,
That's really what you're buying are
right,
the
no,
tenants.
correct. Correct. You have two clients, right? So for Southern California apartment owners right now in this market, what is the biggest mistake that is quietly costing them money?
I have so many answers to this question. There's so many things that I want to list, but I'll try and be quick. Right now, for multifamily owners, I really think that you have to take ownership much more seriously than you have had to in the past. And you really have to run your properties like a business and have an investment strategy and a goal for each building that you own. And because I have so much experience with long-term owners, I see how older owners can sometimes just put the building on cruise control, not really aggressively manage it, and it was okay. And it would just continue to increase in value. And now the landscape for multifamily has completely changed. Expenses and cost of ownership has gone up so much, and rents have not gone up proportionally. And you really have to actively manage. You have to know the rent control rules for your property and for every property, because oftentimes if you multiple properties, the laws are different for each building.
Right.
You have to know the differences and follow those rules. And really, you have to become somebody who markets your building well to your tenants when you have a vacancy. The way that owners used to rehab vacant units, it was all about spending the bare minimum and renting a 1 bedroom for $900. And now that same 1 bedroom, you can get $2,600. And so you have to increase your spend and really be very intentional about how you remodel your units and how you market them. You need professional photographer. We use AI. We're using virtual staging. When my husband will rent apartments for clients, or not apartments, but even homes, he's taking our patio furniture from our house and he's taking it to these properties. He's putting up twinkle lights and they'll rent it in a weekend because the tenants can picture themselves living there. And, they love it. So you're really selling just a lifestyle now. Whereas before, there was no focus on aesthetics. It was, like blue industrial carpet. You know what I'm talking about. And
In
we
the
can't
indoor
do
outdoor
that
carpet,
anymore.
yeah.
Yeah, that does not fly. You can't have like a $10 light fixture. You're not going to rent it. And people don't always understand that anymore. It's a
Or
lot of
carpet,
education.
carpet in your living room.
Yeah, I have clients and they say I'm going to remodel it before I sell it and rent it out, and they want to rent it out really low because they don't know better. They don't know what the market is capable of. And I have to beg them to just don't waste any money, leave it vacant. It's better for it to be vacant because then the new buyer can remodel it to their taste, to their level of, where they think pro forma is.
All very, just from a property management perspective, dead on, like
Yeah.
100%. I mean, that is the game right now. It's not, the game has 100% changed when it comes to what is acceptable, what residents are looking for when it comes to the renovation level of a unit. You can't just clean the thing and call it rent ready. And it can't have 5-year-old carpet that's been cleaned 20 times that has wrinkles in it. It doesn't apply. It doesn't.
Yeah. I
And it,
remember when I was a new agent, and I was cold calling. I used to cold call everyone who owned in Northeast LA. It's all I had. That's all I did. I didn't have any other clients, and I got my best clients that way. But I very specifically remember once cold calling Fred Leeds, and he was like, "The name of the game is vacancy. You never want to have any vacancy, And the mentality then and what worked then is so different than what works now. Now you want units that are going to turn over every couple of years so that you can keep your rents at market. And you don't necessarily want a 4-bedroom unit that, 10 people are going to live in and never leave. You want, people who are going to naturally turn over so that
right.
you can, keep your rents up."
Especially true in RSO or rent controlled cities.
Yeah.
That you're not going to beat inflation if you don't have turnover, because
Yeah.
the
That's
set rent increases are generally like Santa Monica or West Hollywood or something like that. They're below CPI, which is
insane.
insane. Talking to you, Santa Monica and West Hollywood. That's right. Calling you out in your draconian measures.
Even the city of LA,
Oh, City of LA,
unincorporated
right in
LA,
there.
it's
Culver
all
City,
tough.
Culver City, you're in that mess too. Inglewood, you're not being overlooked either in your draconian rent control measures. I mean, hard enough out here.
Yeah, seriously.
We're not political on this show, but we are pro policy, pro real estate policy.
Amen.
When you first look at an apartment building, inspect it, walk it, what are the first 2 or 3 things you look for to determine if it's a strong or good deal?
So I'd say it depends on the type of property. For like a value add type building, I'm looking for how is a buyer going to create upside here. So if it, you have legacy tenants, low rents, I'm looking for, can we add ADUs somewhere? That's a really big thing that buyers are doing right now because, the 2015 to 2018 cash for keys wave is gone. That is not a business plan anymore, to do buyouts on everyone, rehab the building and refi it. That's just done.
Usually ends in a lawsuit somehow, in my experience, especially if it's LA City.
I mean, nowadays, it's just not the environment.
Right.
Maybe it's a win if somebody wants to leave and will take the cash for keys, but you can't buy a building on upside anymore. So now everyone's buying on cash flow with additional upside to be realized. And so that's my job, is to figure out who's the best buyer and how are they going to make money. And then if it's not a value add deal, let's say it's a really nice sort of like pride of ownership property, or it's in a really nice area, I'm looking at curb appeal and just how the building runs. Those types of buyers, they don't want problems. They don't want problem tenants. They don't want huge expenses, when they first buy it. They don't want to have to replace electrical panel, that's really expensive immediately, so they can keep their insurance.
Right. And that panel thing was a nice gift last year, right? When all those new insurance policies when all the insurance carriers left California, we're making everyone replace panels.
It works for me because I've had people sell because they have been mandated to do so many expensive repairs. And a lot of these owners are living off off the cash flow and
Right.
they don't have the money to invest in these very expensive repairs. And they'd say, you know what, I'm making less than I used to. Forget it. I'll just sell. I don't want the headache.
Follow up on that. When they sell, do they 1031 into something else, or do they just get out and take the
It
money and put in the
varies.
stock market?
It varies.
Is
I
it
mean, a lot of the
split?
people right now who are selling who are older are they're using the money. I mean, I've had multiple people where, they have family who needs like dementia care, or
Wow.
you're paying
Okay.
for your kids' college, or, you're
Interesting.
buying something else with it, or just using it to retire or move out of the area or whatever. A lot of people are sizing down also in terms of the number of units that they own.
Interesting. And
Yeah.
they're staying in the market, but they're downsizing the amount of units. Like for example.
For example, like someone will sell like an 8 to 10 unit that has everyone's lived there 30 years and they're tired of managing it and they're tired of their tenants who they've known for 30 years who have never moved. And they'll buy, like I did that for a building in Silver Lake, and they did a 1031 exchange into a $2 million duplex in Los Feliz with like really gorgeous building, Spanish style, amazing tenants who were so immaculately clean. It was probably the nicest unit I've ever been in my life in
Wow.
terms of I like went home and cleaned my house after that. And I was like, I need to organize. This is embarrassing.
You're like, this is, yeah. Like you feel that
They
adrenaline.
set the
I just feel off.
standard. It smelled so good in there. I was like, where is your air freshener from? Whatever those things
It's
are called.
And as you know, and maybe the audience does it, smell is the number one thing that people remember of a unit, right?
You and I have probably smelled some really bad units.
Whoa.
So everyone who's watching his experience is immediately smelling like cat urine, cigarettes, and like crack all at the same time right now
Mm-hmm.
because
Right.
that's how bad it is. It can be.
Or bed bugs, the bed bug smell, or
Thank
cockroaches.
God. Yeah,
Yeah.
the roaches. Yeah.
Right. What separates a multifamily property that is successful for the owner from one that is underperforming for the owner?
What separates something that's successful versus underperforming? So
Yeah.
I'd say everyone probably has a different investors are always at a different stage in their sort of like investment life cycle. So you have the younger investors who are very aggressive. They're ready to take on projects. They're building the ADUs. They want something with a lot of upside, and they're really fun to work with as buyers. I love it when they want to buy my listings.
They have lots of ideas. They're like, ah.
They're problem solvers. I love
Right.
them. It's like, yeah, I have a solution for this. And then you have the people who are sort of like midway through their cycle and they're growing their portfolio. They're maybe not quite as ambitious as the young guys in terms of the kind of problems that they are willing to take on. And then you have the people that are sort of like at the winding down
Mhm.
phase of their cycle, and they're maybe, like I mentioned before, looking to downsize or even exit the market because it's changed so much that they just can't stomach the new rules, how things work. They've had problems with tenants, and everyone has different goals for what's success for each building. Some
True.
people just not want to be, they don't want to be bothered and they just want something easy that they can pull money out of or, live off the income. And then other people are growing. And so they're looking for projects, how can I
Right.
solve problems? They're looking to take on the problem building from someone else and, double their money.
Which we need, right? Because otherwise, the inventory in LA is going to just crumble into dust if there's the value add guys out. I myself in my investment group being part of them, like I'm hearing you talk. I'm trying to be quiet. Like I love going to buildings that are
Talk.
value add. Yeah, yeah, it's okay. No.
That's my specialty. We can be
Right.
friends.
Yeah, no, we should definitely talk afterwards.
I have a big portfolio sale coming up. You will be all over it.
I'm interested. We should talk. We should definitely talk. Tell me what all your investment group and all your clients, what is one thing that first-time multifamily buyers, maybe first-time syndicators, should never, ever overlook during the due diligence phase?
So first-time buyers and first-time syndicators are a little bit different. Hopefully you don't give your money to somebody, young kid who's never bought a deal before. I do not recommend that.
Although I have seen that.
I see it all the time. And that's why I say I do not recommend that because they don't have I shouldn't say they don't, but sometimes what you really need always is a very deep knowledge of how to rehab, how to do construction. You need your team, people who are doing your maintenance, your management. I have so many people who call me and they have no comprehension of how permitting works or how hard it
Really?
is to, get things done through LADBS, or they don't, especially for newer investors, they don't understand rent control and the different types of rent control and how it's different for each municipality or based on, when the building was built and all these things they just don't know. And that is a lot of educating that really needs to happen so that they don't get themselves into trouble.
Mm-hmm.
People assume that, oh, I'll just ask them to move out. It's like, no, you can't do that.
Not
They're not going to
anymore.
move. So yeah, having a crew, understanding the rules, knowing, for me personally, and this too, is for us, people who are experienced, like I can walk through somebody's apartment and like look around and tell you their life story,
Right.
Other
Based on what's in there.
people, based on what's in there, and other people who aren't experienced, if it's their first time, they don't know what to look for and they don't know how to identify what type of tenant somebody is based on what's in the unit. And that's why having a good broker or somebody, a good manager or someone who's experienced to help you through that process can really be invaluable.
Very much so. Right? When you walk into a unit and see 8 racks of bunk beds and you don't see that as a red flag, you think it is normal, then you might have a problem. You probably
Yeah,
should
it's
have.
like,
That's not a good thing.
and I mean, I feel like only recently have buyers really had to scrutinize books and records in terms of
Hmm.
expenses. That it used to be that everyone's expenses for multifamily were sort of the same depending on the type of building. And owners would be like, yeah, I know what the expenses are. And we were really going off of GRM. And now the cap rate has become so much more important because insurance is insane.
It
Everyone's
changes yearly.
CWP. Yeah, it's not consistent anymore. And so you're really having to do more due diligence about your tenants because you are really buying the tenants at this point. And
Very interesting way of putting it. Sure. That's an
the
interesting way of
systems
looking at
of
it. You
the
are buying tenants. You're correct. You're
you're buying the
buying. Yeah,
tenants.
that's right.
You can fix the plumbing, but
True.
other
Can't
things
fix
are
the
harder to
population.
fix,
Right. Yeah.
or it's more of an unknown, like, okay,
Big
I
time.
need a new 100-gallon hot water heater, 5-6 grand. That's a known cost. But fixing a tenant who's not paying, or all these other factors, that's a very
Innumerable
unknown.
factors. Right. It's
Yeah.
like you can just make up stuff and it would be true.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
because you're dealing with humans, right? And
Yeah.
we are organic and unpredictable, really. We have emotions, and those don't mean we're logical a lot of the time. Half the time we're logical, half the time we're emotional, and then that's even more so now. I feel like I totally agree with you. You're not just collecting rent and posting notices. You are a therapist, a arbitrator, a customer service agent, a warden, a security guard. I mean, there's all kinds of things you have to be with your building at the moment, right? And you're also the janitor sometimes, and the peacekeeper, the cleaner. I mean, you are all those things, or you have a property management company that is for you. I mean, it's
Yeah.
much more so now because the expectation is higher. Now, rents are higher, expectations are higher. That correlate, but
And
it's
just the climate is so much different now in terms
right.
of tenants and
Tenants are
their
so much more
rights.
well informed.
They're very well informed. Everything is just different. The level of service that is
Mm,
expected is hugely different from what it used to be. The laws on what you can and can't do or can and can't say, that's another thing where I see owners really putting themselves into a lot of liability
right.
in when they're renting out units, when they're communicating with tenants, and it's mostly a lack of education, or it's just, like I said, you have to treat it like a business. You have to educate yourself because what used to fly does not fly.
Right. The handshake with the on-site resident manager. Okay,
Oh my
you get a
God.
free unit, and you manage a place that was par for the course for 100 years, or I don't even maybe
I
longer.
My best friend just called me this morning, who's also a multifamily broker, and she has these listings, and she's like, okay, this is the situation. How do I deal with this? because you have people who are not paying any rent. There's no management agreement. And then the owner's paying them on top of that. And then they want to sell. And it's just like,
You're like, we
how
can
do
fire
we
sale
play
this.
this?
Yeah, you have to
You
get
put
everything cleaned
yourself,
up.
yeah, you put yourself in really tricky situations sometimes by not, having things in writing. We'll just say.
Staying up with the times, right? Because
Yeah.
it's a lot of people are managing the same way they managed 30 years ago, and everything has changed, and they haven't. We see it all
Yeah.
the time when we're bringing on new owners, our property management company, and I'm always amazed at like, how have you gotten away with this so long? Because
Yeah.
I know 10 other people who are in front of labor boards or whatever lawsuits or didn't get away with this for much less. It's sad in a way. It's the trust has eroded between the residents and the landlords, and it used to be much more of a, we provide housing, you pay rent, we're good. Like there's a mutual respect.
And the thing is that these problems are all compounding. Like I sold a building last year where they got dropped by their insurance. And so that was
That
one
problem.
situation. They needed to upgrade the electrical. They had a tenant who they had been giving the rent credit to take out the trash back and forth. That tenant, used to have a job. Now they didn't have a job, and all of a sudden they said that they hurt themselves in the parking lot because there was potholes everywhere. And they sent them a letter, from attorney, I'm injured. And it was like a complete freak out by the owners. And they hadn't done any maintenance on their property because they were living off of the income. And it took me 3 times to sell it, 3 escrows,
Wow. Wow.
because not everybody has an appetite for those kinds of issues right now. And those are the buildings that are on the market. And
Nice.
so in terms of what we're seeing right now, it's either it's everyone's sort of like problem buildings.
It's the truth, and I spoke with another one of my broker friends just recently at lunch, and he was just like, every deal I do is the hardest deal I've ever done. Like, and they're progressively getting harder and harder. And he's like, the deal I'm in, and he's telling me the deal he was in right now. He's like, I thought the deal I was in like 2 months before that was crazy. This one's like twice that, and the one before that,
And
He's like,
I'll
it's
tell you, this is why I pivoted again, because I used to always do multifamily. Then I do some 2 to 4 units here and there. I love those deals. They're so easy.
those are
30-day escrow, simple. The residential brokers, if you're nice to them and are respectful to them, can be amazing to work with. They have
really
great like client. Oh yeah. I mean,
interesting.
if they're good, there's some bad ones, obviously. Same for us too.
That's the same anywhere, USA, right?
But I've started doing a lot more commercial properties, people who are doing SBA loans, they're buying buildings for their businesses, industrial, because a lot of times they're even easier, than what's happening in multifamily. And so
Commercial for
it's
sure, right?
it's been a fun couple of years, it breaks it up a little bit. And
Yeah.
honestly, I'll tell you this, what prompted that was because of the climate in Northeast LA. And when the, cash for keys was so rampant, I just didn't like being a part of those deals.
Mm.
You have people who come in from out of the area and some young kid, syndicating a deal. It's like, oh, I'm just going to throw money at everyone, a couple bucks here and there, and kick them out of a house that they've lived in for 20 years. It's like, I don't feel good about that.
Yeah, there's
That's not
something right.
how I want to make my money. And
Right.
so
I
that's
understand
when
that.
I started, adjusting my goals.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, stay like not serving those clients any longer, moving into a different type
I
of
mean,
like client.
they're great to be in a transaction with, but and I can be in a transaction with them on other stuff, and
Right.
but once you've done a couple of them,
Yeah.
it's not
You
my
kind of,
ideal
yeah, you don't,
situation.
it has a feeling attached to that. And you don't want to like be kind of a stink in a
Yeah.
sense. You're trying to provide housing, but it's kind of going the other way. I absolutely agree with that. I mean, there has to be ethics in what we do. And these, in the end, we are providing housing, and these are people's lives, and they live there. And if they live there for 20 years, it's a hard move, no matter what. Even if and as a landlord owner, we need to, at least from my perspective, about my buildings, like I need to take that into account.
Yeah. And this was before we had such stringent rules on the cash for keys, when people were just, here's
absolutely.
$2,000, sign this, and you have to leave in 30 days,
Right.
So,
It's good to hear that you stick to your principles and your core values in your profession. I mean, that says a lot about you. Just from for what it's worth, I don't know a whole lot of brokers that would subscribe to that. They're going to get the deal done, however the deal needs to get done, however it
yeah.
is within the law. And it's not
Yeah.
illegal to have cash for keys, but there's something about it. I feel that. I hear you on
Yeah.
that.
Well, I mean, and it was a tough situation because
Right.
back then every seller wants the most for their property and they feel not every seller has the same amount of compassion for their tenants,
No, they don't.
and so it's a tough situation.
All right. Well, that was the last of my interrogation. Now we move on to the fun round.
Okay.
My personal favorite part of the show which is the rapid fire questions. I'm going to ask you one question and try to be very quiet, and you answer in any way, as much as you want, little as you want, or not at all. Just tell me so, and then we will conclude. Are you ready, Dina?
Yes, I'm ready.
Would you rather be able to fly or read minds?
I feel like I can already read minds. That's why I'm so good at my job.
What am I thinking right now?
You're probably ready for this to be over.
Oh, what is one food you could eat every day?
Probably like a latte and a chocolate croissant every morning. I don't, but I wish I could.
Awesome. Favorite song?
This one's embarrassing. Anyone who knows me very well knows that my hype songs are all too short. So
Can
we'll
you
leave
sing
it
it?
at that. I will not on the internet.
Oh, but you do sing it, I bet.
Of course.
Yeah, as you should.
Thank you.
TikTok or Instagram?
Definitely Instagram. I don't go on TikTok.
And last and final question, early bird or night owl?
At this age, I'm both.
Both.
I know. Well, I get up early to work out. I'd say half the time. So I'll have like a 6 a.m. workout class I like to do. And then a lot of times I'll stay up a little bit too late, either working, watching TV,
Having
doing
some
something
you
I'm not
time.
supposed to. Yeah, it's like
Right?
I work all day, I mom in the evenings or work. And so I need a couple minutes. Hang out with my husband.
Understand. One last bonus question. If you were going to give one piece of advice or a quote that you heard from a mentor or a friend or something like that to aspiring brokers or real estate agents or even investors, what would that be?
So I might butcher this a little bit, but the concept of the quote is that people don't really remember the details about you, but they remember how you make them feel. And that's something like whenever I hear that, it's a good reminder. And it's something that I really take to heart in terms of how I interact with my clients and other people in the industry, especially. As commercial brokers, we sometimes get a bad rap in terms of being easy to work with. And I really try to bring a personal touch to my clients and everyone I interact with, other brokers, escrow, it's important to be nice. And
it is important to be nice, and be honest, and right?
Yeah.
Be human, right? That's one of the best quotes. I love it.
Yeah.
I forget exactly what the quote was and what it is, but I know exactly where you're going with that. It's like,
who knows what the real quote was, but it's like
right,
people remember you by how you make them feel.
Yeah, it's the feeling, right? Because we are sensitive animals. We really are.
Yeah.
As much as we want to put on a facade, it's like, how did that person make you feel? And even if they told you all the happiest things in the world, and there's you just kind of feel it. Even across, even on screens, you could sense it, feel it. Not as much as in person, but it is what is left, right? And there's another quote that goes like when you pass away, the only thing people are going to remember is how you affected them and how you made them feel.
Exactly.
Nothing else.
Yeah.
Not how rich you were, how poor you were, or anything.
Nobody cares. Yeah.
Nobody
were you a nice person? Yeah.
Yeah, right. How'd you make them feel? Not what you did in life.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us to the end of our show. How can an investor who would like to list or invest in your deals, how can they get in touch with you, and what are the best means, if you don't mind?
Sure. I mean, obviously phone, email. My website is incomepropertiesla.com. My email is dana@incomepropertiesla.com.
Easy to remember.
Email me for my phone number. And I am on Instagram if you want to come follow me there. It is half personal, half business.
Sounds like mine.
If I'm in a good mood, I'm posting a lot of fun stuff. And then sometimes when I'm in like hardcore work mode, I'm, less active, but it's fun time.
And you will be able to, you'll have our show to post and send to all your raving fans as well once we are out of edit.
Thank you. I don't know how many fans I have, but people will enjoy watching, I'm sure.
Even if you got 5 raving fans, that's all you need, right?
I guess, yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
that
a lot of my clients now I've had for 20 years, and you
you've
do a
got some
couple deals
crazy good
each
long-term
year.
clients. Right,
I
yeah.
do. They're the best.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being on the show, Dana. It was an absolute
Thank you for
pleasure.
having me.
And I look forward to speaking with you. Actually, we should have some coffee here in the future. We're not too far away from each other. So
Yeah, definitely.
I look forward to it. And
Alrighty.